I was out on a walk the other evening with my husband and my dogs, as you do. And I'm not going to lie, we haven't been out walking for a while, mostly because my husband's been super busy working. And also, I have been a little bit down and out. I've got a bum knee and a bum ankle and a bum Achilles heel. That's right. I'm a multitasker when it comes to injuries. So I know, overachiever. I know. You want to be me, but you can't be me. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, we're out on a walk and we hadn't taken the dogs for a while. Mark always likes to take Nike, our Jack Russell, and we head out on the walk and Nike's just like pulling. I mean, like she is just pulling and he's just kind of letting her pull. And I was like, I'm keeping my mouth shut, because I'm like, this is supposed to be like a nice time that we're having together, marriage goals. And anyway, I can't take it anymore because she's at the point where she's like she's heaving, she's got a harness on it. She's still like, because she's pulling so hard. And finally, I was like, hey, I don't know, maybe if you want to, maybe let's get her under control. And so, of course, he's like, yeah, Nike, stop pulling. And I'm like, okay, well, let's just do this. Let's just stop. We're just going to stop. And we're going to wait for Nike to realize we're not going to go if she's pulling like that. Anyway, we do that a couple of times. And then Mark's, I think, getting like a little bit frustrated because he's like, we just need to go for a walk. And he's like, let's just go. And I'm like, listen, the listen might have been where I went wrong. I was like, listen, like, you've been married to me for 21 years. How are you not getting this? And this is where the walk took a turn because I'm not, okay. I'm trying to do this. Listen, he's been with me for 21 years. He's been with me through like when we had our brick and mortar business. He helped me with dog daycare groups. He's done so many pack walks and all of that stuff. But here's the thing. Nike is his baby. It's his baby. From the moment that we got Nike, we got Nike when Zach was getting too old to do his job. We have Jack Russells because we live out in the country. We have a barn. Inside that barn, there are rats. That's just the reality of it. Zach was a terminator when it came to rats. I decided that we should get another Jack Russell. As soon as that Jack Russell entered into our home, Mark was like, she's my dog. And I was like, okay, well, that's okay. But also everybody's dog. But anyway, he was just like, she's my dog. And because Mark loves the little dogs. I know. How has he put up with me? Because if you know, right? Like I have Noofs. And he's a little dog person. Anyway, so I kind of let it go because I was like, sometimes he gets into that, like, you have all the dogs and I have none. And I'm like, okay, whatevs. But at the end of the day, I was kind of like, okay, you walk her, you do the stuff, you do the things. But here we are now out on a walk. And I'm like, listen, I can't in good consciousness walk around with a ding ball at the end of your leash. It's bad for my brand. It's bad for my brand. Like, we can't be having this. So anyway, as you can imagine, maybe that conversation didn't go as well as I thought it would in my head when I said, listen, but, it did. This has come up before. This has come up before in our lives. And I wanted to share this particular story today for this episode of our show because I wanted to talk about what happens when your partner, your family, the people that live with you and the dog maybe aren't on the same page as you when it comes to rules, the boundaries, the training. When that happens, not only does it cause a little bit of friction, am I right? A little bit of friction in the relationships, but it also does affect the dog. So today we're going to be talking about not only how it affects your dog, how it affects your relationship with your dog, your partner's relationship with the dog. We're going to talk it all through today. If this is you, then you are in the right place, my friend. Let's get into it. Are you worried that your fearful dog may hurt someone or something else? Do you have to prepare just to take a walk around the block? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I too had that dog. The one that you could only walk at nighttime when no one else was around. And I felt ashamed, and oh gosh, I wish that people could just see the dog that I know and love. I wanted the confidence to be able to walk my dog and not have to worry about who or what was around the corner. And I kept telling myself that if I just keep doing obedience drills and distracting with treats, that things would get better. Until I found the secret. Fear is not something that you can train out of a dog. In this podcast, you will find tips to help build your dog's confidence naturally, communication and understanding to foster that trust, and how to address those fear-based behaviors effectively so that you can enjoy a stress-free life with your dog. So if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners, grab your notebook, and let's get to it. Hello, my fellow dog-loving friend. It's Tracy. Happy Thanksgiving. If you are in Canada, like me, it is Thanksgiving Monday. Are you getting your turkey prepped? Should I be getting my turkey prepped? That's a legitimate question. Should I start now? Am I supposed to be starting now? I need to know. I will say that I have been doing turkeys for my family. I'm a pretty good cook. I'm not going to lie. It always works out. But I want to know, how many years do you have to do the turkey cooking before you stop Googling how to cook a turkey? Because I do it every single year. I'm like, I don't know, how do I do this? I don't even know how to do this. I Google it every single year, usually find out that I was supposed to prep this turkey the day before and I didn't, and then I have to do some makeshift thing. That is me every single year. Hopefully that's not you. You probably know what you're doing. I don't. Happy Thanksgiving, my Canadian friends. And I thought, what better way to celebrate Thanksgiving here in Canada than to talk about family drama when it comes to living with your fearful dog? Am I right? I am right. See how I meshed these themes together? Absolutely. Hey, if my story resonated with you a little bit, then this episode is for you. This is actually a very, very common question that I get, or a comment even that I get, talking about, my partner is undermining my training with my dog. And there is a concern that when this happens, it's going to affect my relationship, my bond with the dog. And I thought this was a great episode to kind of sort of debunk some things. I'm going to good news, bad news it for you. We're going to good news, bad news it. We're going to talk about all of the things when it comes to living with a fearful dog and what your dog needs, and how the people, all the people that live under your roof or your family that comes over for Thanksgiving, everybody has to be on the same page because it does affect your dog. Want. So I might as well bad news it first. Since I already started that way. All right, I'll bad news it first. We'll do the bad news first, then we're going to good news it, okay? So the bad news about this is you are absolutely right. It will affect your dog's ability to move forward, especially your fearful dog. I mean, I will say this. If you have a happy-go-lucky dog, if you have a pretty well-balanced happy-go-lucky dog, it's not going to affect them to the same extent. It's still going to affect them because dogs in general like to have a pattern of predictability, right? They like that. But if a happy-go-lucky dog's going to be able to kind of bounce back from those things, whereas a fearful dog is going to struggle a little bit more. So if you have a less than confident dog or a fearful dog or a fear reactive dog, absolutely, yes, this is going to affect them. Your family, your significant other, your teenagers and teenagers, am I right? I mean, sometimes it's not that they are undermining your training. They just don't put in any effort to do any of it. I have my youngest son, when he was younger, I called him my little mini me. He had just had this innate ability with the dogs. He was he would come for walks with me, and he would have this interactive games with them and all. Like, it was so amazing. And then he became a teenager. And now I have to say things like, did you count to make sure all the dogs are back in? Like, did you actually count them? Because he quite often forgets one or two of them outside. And he's like, I did it. And I'm like, no, you didn't. Anyway, I digress. The point is that, yes, indeed, everybody needs to be on some level of agreement when it comes to living with your less than confident dog, or your dog in general. Because one of the things that I will hear quite often, and this happens a lot with mixing and matching families, right? People that get together and he has a dog and she has a dog, and then we move under the same roof and we'll say things like, this is my dog, and the girlfriend will say, this is my dog. And what we need to understand that is, when dogs live under one roof and they have one yard, that becomes their home, their pack, their den, their territory, and everybody within it is part of that. So there's no my dog, your dog, right? That's why I kind of, when my husband says that, I'm like, she's not like your dog, like we don't want to we don't want to create that division. We never want to create a division of us versus them. Okay. But let's say you don't have multiple dogs, and you're just a family that has one dog. Definitely, people not being on the same page as you can affect your dog's ability to find that pattern of predictability. And if you've been following me for a while, you know the main thing that all fearful or unconfident dogs need is a comfort zone. You cannot have a true comfort zone unless you have a pattern of predictability. And that's true for everything, not just fearful dogs. That's just true. That's true for us. We don't feel safe and comfortable unless we can predict the outcome of our environment. So it does affect it. That's the bad news. It does affect it. However, if you're worried about affecting your personal bond with your dog, it does not affect that. Okay? Your significant other, how they respond to your dog, what they do with the dog, does not affect your personal bond. I've mentioned this before, especially when I used to talk about the leadership scorecard and how every single person has their own unique scorecard. Everybody has the ability to create their own unique relationship with that dog. So what my husband does with Nike on a walk does not affect Nike when I walk her, right? Will it be like if she gets on the leash and she starts to pull a little bit? All I'll have to do is be like, oh, we don't do that. And she goes, oh, right, I'm walking with you. And she'll switch over. Like, she's pretty good with that, right? So the stuff that other people do won't affect your unique bond. So you can always be working on your bond, how you show up for your dog, your unique relationship. It's not affected. Okay, so that's the good news. I never want people to have this feeling like, well, I might as well throw in the towel because nobody's listening to me, and everything's falling apart. I can't do it. You don't have to feel that way. Your dog will still have its unique bond with you. And if I'm being honest, and this is the thing that, I wish more people actually really got to see this in action. Dogs, especially fearful or unconfident dogs, will always gravitate to the person that provides them with the structure and the boundaries and the leadership. That's just the truth. That's just the truth. So when my husband says things like, you have all the dogs and I have none, that's not based on like who paid for them or who claimed them or whatnot. It literally is based on the fact that I create my own unique bonds with each and every one of my dogs. When I go out, they'll follow me. That's just the reality of it. Do I like it? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. You can ask my kids that. It drives them crazy because I'll ask the kids to let my dogs out, and they'll all just sit at the deck and they'll stare in the house like, "Are you coming out?" And I'll be like, "I said take the dogs out." And they're like, "They don't want to go unless you're going." Right? Like that's just because I have worked that hard on that relationship. I'm the person that shows up not only just to feed them and to train them, but I'm also the person that goes out in the field with them and goes and finds things, and I am engaged in their world, and I compliment them on their sticks, and I treat every single dog like its own unique self while still maintaining this idea of an overarching umbrella of we're in this together. So that is the work that I do. And when I say work, it's not even work to me. It's just what I do. It's just how I live with them. And so you can rest assured, my friend, if you're doing that sort of stuff, if you've been following me along and you're engaging with your dog in that way, nothing that your partner or your family members can do can undermine that unless, dun dun dun, unless you don't advocate for your dog when it comes to your family. And this is where it gets hard. And this is where it can get a little bit ugly. And this is where you might need a mediator to help you. Um, because where it will affect your relationship is if you go to step up to advocate for your dog's needs and your significant other, your kids or whatnot aren't doing it, and you don't put your foot down. And I understand that sometimes it can feel like, what's the point? They're not going to listen, all of that good stuff. But I'll give you an example of what I mean. So let's say it's Thanksgiving. It is Thanksgiving. Wow. But let's say it's Thanksgiving and you're like, I think that we should put the dog away for Thanksgiving. I heard this really smart lady on a podcast tell me that that would be a good idea. That way we can just all enjoy and we don't have to worry about the dog and the dog's happy and all that stuff. And let's say your significant other says something like, oh, just let them be. Just let them be a dog. They'll get over it. They'll be like nervous at first, but then they'll get over it. And if in that moment you don't advocate for the dog and stand up for the dog and say, this is something that I really want to do, we can discuss it later, but this is what I'm doing. Um, in those moments, and don't get me wrong, again, I know this is hard. Advocating for your dog with your family is the hardest. It's easy to tell a stranger no or to bugger off if you don't want your dog touched. It's harder when it's your family, and I get that. But it will crack away at your bond with your dog if you don't advocate for those kind of things. Because what happens there, right? The dog stays out. Let's say the dog gets overwhelmed and stressed. You're going to be sitting there with your arms crossed going, see, I told you this isn't working. The dog might get too stressed, may end up snapping. You end up going, I told you so. And the whole reason for that is because now we're starting off with this tension that the dog picks up on, and it's going to make it even worse. So here's my suggestion for what you can do, because it's one thing to give you the good and the bad and the ugly, but you need to know what to do. Here would be my suggestion. We do need to come to an agreement on the non-negotiables of what your dog needs. And this might be a time where you could say, hey, maybe let's listen to this episode of the podcast that Tracy just talked about this, because we need to sit down as a family and talk about what is best for our dog. What do we know to be true? The dog really struggles when there's company over. So let's just not do it around holidays, because there's so much emotions and everything going on holidays. Let's not use that as a training opportunity. Let's give the dog a break. Let's have some clear-cut boundaries, non-negotiables for this dog. Understanding this dog needs a pattern of predictability. Who walks me? Who feeds me? What does that look like? Right? The ritualistic, if I can give you sort of some guidelines here, the ritualistic behaviors should be non-negotiables. What are ritualistic behaviors? The ritual of food, Eating is a ritual for dogs. So how are we going to feed the dog? We can't let one person let the dog get all like jumpy and crazy and the other person like I make them go for a sit. You know, maybe you can come up with a compromise, but the ritual of how the dog is fed should be similar. The ritual of rest should be similar. How do we ask the dog to go into the crate or its safe place? What do we do there? That should be the same. What does that safe space look like? Do we always cover the crate? Do we set it up a certain way? Let's come to an agreement on that. The ritual of migration. This is a big one. What do we do on our walks? This is huge, especially if we have a fearful or fear reactive dog. How are we supporting our dog through the experience of walking when they are fearful of people or other dogs? And I will tell you, when you're a part of the Fearful Dog Fearless Framework program, this is one of the things that we go over in our, I think it's module 5, our Build Your Brave protocols. We talk about designing protocols so that you know exactly what to do when your dog has a fearful experience. And it's important that everybody that walks the dog knows those protocols. Okay. So when we're talking about stuff like that, we want to make sure that we are in fact on the same page. There are certain non-negotiables that you need to be a part of. And hey, if you need help with that, as I mentioned, hop on over to beyondobedience.ca and check out the Fearful Dog Fearless Framework. This is a program I'm really super proud of, but it's also a community that I love. Fellow dog lovers, we have our own private Facebook group. We meet once a month for Q&A, and we're helping each other out. Like, what are you doing? What works for you? All of that stuff happens in that group. But listen, I will also extend this to you. If you are like, I don't know how I'm going to get my significant other on board, and you're thinking, I need someone to help me with that, and you want to book a one-on-one private session with me, you can do that too. That is available to you as well. Because I'll be honest with you, it's always better coming from me than it is coming from you, right? Like, you can't go into a talk with your significant other and be like, listen, listen, you've been married to me for 21 years. How have you not picked up on this yet? You can't do that. I've already figured that out. It doesn't work well. So it's easier when you've got a mediator, somebody that can help sort of lay it all for you. I don't know if you knew that I did that, but I do. You can book one-on-one private virtual sessions with me where we can sit down together as a team and we can work this out. If you want more information about that, be sure to go to beyondobedience.ca for that, or the Fearful Dog program. Either one of those are going to help you to come to a place where everybody knows the non-negotiables and we can start to move forward. All right, listen, if you enjoyed this episode, I'm just going to go with the listen now. Hey, listen, if you enjoyed this episode, can you do me a favor and share it with other dog-loving friends that might benefit from it? And if you haven't already, and you're on Apple, please give me a 5-star written review. It really does help to push the podcast out. And that is the goal, is to meet more and more dog lovers like you and I. And as always, get out there today, my friend, and be the person that your dog thinks you are. Because your dog thinks that you are amazing. And so do I. Have a wonderful day, an amazing Thanksgiving, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye for now. Oh, and one more thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and is not meant to replace hands-on professional training. If you are really struggling with your dog, please reach out to a professional in your area. All right, that's it. Bye for now.